What's up, you big, beautiful Madridistas, and also the 5% of you who are not Madridistas? Welcome to the Managing Madrid Podcast. Kiyan Sobhani, your host here. We are recording this live on YouTube minutes-ish after Real Madrid. I was going to say draw, but really I want to say drop 2 points against Atleti at the Bernabeu. And some of that is not their fault. I think most of it is their fault, and we'll get to why in a second. But first, shout out to our presenting sponsor, Managing Mates. Today we're rocking Toni Kroos. New camera angle. It's kind of hard to see, but I got 8 iterations of Toni Kroos right now on a t-shirt. If you like this or you want to get any of your favorite players on a shirt, on a pair of shorts, on a hoodie, whatever is the case, go to moji-mates.com. That's moji-mates.com. moji-mates.com. Hey, Tony, just come back for can you lace it up? Lace it up at the Etihad. Just see if you like it. Win-win. If you don't like it, you just help Real Madrid win. You transcend some of the stuff that's going on, and then you go back to your podcast. If you like it, you stay. You help Real Madrid. Win-win. Come back just for one game. Lace it up, Tony. If you're listening, Tony, we'd love to have you back at Real Madrid. Also, presenting sponsor number 2, the equal presenting sponsor, I should say, tacsports.ca, TAFC Academy are one of our best friends on the show. They do so much for us. They host podcasts for us in Toronto. They run soccer clinics, basketball clinics, swimming clinics. March break coming up. You can sign up your kids if you're in Toronto. Summer camps coming up. Believe it or not, hard to believe, but it is coming up. Summer camps are coming up. And if you're in Toronto, you want to sign up your kids to the best academy in Toronto, best facilities, best coaching, go to tacsports.ca. And without further ado, let's get to it. Real Madrid won. Atletico Madrid won at the Bernabeu. The most predictable result in all of sports is a Madrid derby ending 1-1. Let's get to it.
Nice article in the Managing Madrid blog. Wonderful lads that do a great job there. And worth reading about that man there. Karim Benzema needs to rest, and the numbers reveal why.
Times ended up almost looking like a 6-3-1. Some very good writing about that on the Managing Madrid website. First rate podcast as well. Of course, Fede Valverde was a huge part of the equation.
All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Managing Madrid Podcast. Kiyan Sobhani here. Sam Leverage was at the Bernabeu for Managing Madrid. He's at the press conferences now. So we'll deal with those quotes as they come in. This is the last podcast here in this office for me for the week. I'm heading to the Etihad for the first leg, for my annual appearance at the Etihad. Very excited for that. But I want to try a little something different today. It's been long my desire to kind of make these podcasts more fast-paced and come with really concise talking points. This, believe it or not, you wouldn't have known this listening, or maybe you've noticed a little change. I don't know. But the last couple post-game podcasts, we've actually had concise talking points and blitzing through it. But of course, super chats come in. There's only so much we can do. We aim for 30 minutes. We aim for 20 minutes, and we go for 1 hour, 20 minutes. That's the nature of the beast. It's okay. I really enjoy sitting here, but I am trying to go through. I have 5 to 8 talking points that I'm going to blitz through, and each of them will take, a few minutes to get through, and then we have super chats. So I know that a lot of you guys are here to hear my thoughts about the referee, and I'm here to tell you that it is definitely one of the talking points. I'm not going to list it as the first talking point, because while I do believe the refereeing has been pretty bad the last couple games, and quite frankly, the refereeing in La Liga has been terrible for a long-ass time, it's not going to be the first bullet point, but we will get to it, I promise. The first thing I want to kind of point out here is that Real Madrid in the past couple games, while the referee has not helped them, they've really shot themselves in the foot with the way they played. So 2 things are essentially true. The officiating has been bad, but also Real Madrid have been bad. I do think the second half performance tonight was the best half of football we've seen in quite quite a bit of time. But this is also classic Real Madrid. They have slow starts. They dig themselves a hole. They don't play well, and then they get it together, and we have to rely on these remontadas or, near remontadas or just coming up short because we didn't play like this from the beginning. So while we kind of feel out the first half and let the game come to us, it's not a very proactive approach. And for that reason, once we start taking the game to Atletico, whoever it may be, we start sending bodies into the box. We start playing in the correct positions. Sometimes it's just not going to be enough time to give yourself a W. What I thought was going wrong in the first half was, well, first of all, Atletico Madrid are one of the greatest defensive teams of all time. And I don't mean necessarily this iteration this season, but Atletico as a whole, this is their identity, right? So they'll go into low blocks, and maybe this isn't peak Atleti defense like 2013 to 2017 range, but it's still very good, still very well drilled. They're going into banks of 5 and 4. They always, because it's basically a back 5, even though it's listed as a back 4, because Lino would drop into the back 5. And then you had between, it depending on what side of the field they were on, they would have 4 midfielders kind of just in close proximity on the strong side, hounding Real Madrid's ball carriers. Between Barrios and Griezmann and Llorente, they would all converge onto one side where the ball was, and they would close passing lanes. They would play very narrow. Real Madrid, on the flip side, the way they approached it was very interesting and somewhat ironic in the sense that so much discussion about we have 3 left wingers in the team who love the left wing. Their best position is the left wing. And how do they coexist? And how do they not get in each other's way? The funny thing about that first half was that none of them were on the left wing. I posted the heat map on Twitter, and the collective heat map of Vinny and Rodrygo and Jude were basically not on the left at all. Like Rodrygo had the ball on the most. He was more on the right. Mbappe and Vinny were in the middle. Like they were playing very central on defense and offense. It would kind of morph into this 4-4-2 off the ball where Rodrygo would go on the right wing, Jude would go on the left wing. Then you'd have Vinny and Mbappe down the middle on defense. And then also in the build-up phase, neither Vinny nor Mbappe were on the left side. They would give Fran Garcia the entire left flank. And the ball just wasn't going there. And so, again, there's no right or wrong way necessarily how to approach things. There's just different matchups. There's different ways to do it. But today, I just found it really interesting that we did not use that avenue at all. And between the three, it has to be said, Rodrygo has been the best of the three. He's been the most informed. The biggest, actually, I was going to say biggest, the main and only source of offensive production we had, and it was very little in the first half, was Rodrygo versus Lino. Lino could not contain Rodrygo. He could not keep him in front of him. And that continued in the second half, as we saw with the goal, but also in the yellow card just before the goal that Lino suffered because he had to hold Rodrygo's shirt because he couldn't stop him. And that was the best source of offense. What changed in the second half, I think, was a couple things. In the second half, so it was a little bit more symmetrical. Vinny would go to the left, and I thought Vinny was tremendous in the second half. He was effortlessly dribbling past his man. He was putting the right ball into the box. He was giving defenders nightmares with his dribbling. He was making the right decision. Night and day difference. He was picking up the ball on the left wing. He stopped playing so narrow, and he started to get the ball on the left wing more. So that was a huge difference in Real Madrid's play. And by extension, the other thing that changed was we had more targets in the box. So, I remember just taking a note of it. In the first half, Lucas Vazquez makes a run in the 16th minute, as if he's a center forward. And I'm like, what's the purpose of this? No one cares. No one's tracking. You're not really creating space for anybody. And even if you do get the ball, what are you going to do in that situation? You're not going to hold it up. You're not going to bring it down. You're in traffic. You're out-muscled. You're outnumbered. You are smaller than everyone there. And I just couldn't grasp that. Those are the kinds of quote-unquote targets we had. And the second half, what changed was Jude Bellingham was getting into the box. And it's just night and day difference when Jude starts attacking the box to when he doesn't. Because he is our best target, whether we like it or not. Because we don't have Joselu. We don't have Erling Haaland. We don't have a target. We just don't have. Even if like Endrick comes in, he's not a target. He can't do it. Which brings me to this point. I think apologies. I think I got cut off for a second there. I'm back. I think the best solution at this point, and look, there's no solution that's going to take Real Madrid to a treble at this point, I don't think. Because I said this, I did a Twitter audio Twitter Spaces at halftime. Shout out to Twitter Spaces. If you're on Twitter, follow me at Kiyan So, and I've been doing halftime audio sessions regularly. You can go check them out. But what I said there was like, even if Real Madrid figure it out, even if we haven't seen Real Madrid peak yet, and then finally in the springtime they get it together, they go on this classic Real Madrid run, and if they do that, they're putting it really late this season. Even still, the back line is such a mess that it's really hard for me to see this team go places. I'll stick with my prediction to the grave that Real Madrid will win the Champions League this year. I'm not going to backtrack on that. I said it before the season started, and I'm going to continue with that prediction. But it's going to be really difficult with this back line. I won't lie. This would be a Herculean effort to win despite these challenges this season. Anyways, I think a solution would be to go back to last season formation, where we had Jude in a more advanced role attacking the box and being a target, which means if you do that, you have to put in an extra midfielder in, because I don't think you can get away with it with just using the same lineup that you did today and having enough bodies in transition and asking Jude to also be really great defending in transition, which he is anyway, regardless of where he plays. And he had some incredible defensive sequences in transition today too. So unless you're playing like a high-flying, high-pressing brand of football, and you're winning the ball high up the pitch, and you're able to cope with Jude playing in an advanced role that way, it's going to be hard to do without just replacing one of the front three with a midfielder. Which, of course, if you're going to do this, it is a little bit unjust because he's arguably the best of the three. And with regards to just pure form, it's going to have to be Rodrygo, because Vinicius and Mbappe are just too big of a name to bench. So it's just something worth pondering. Like the challenge is, look, I don't make the rules. I'm not the one who put this squad together, and it just in a lot of ways doesn't make sense, right? The way it's put together. But like without Joselu, when Jude gets into the box and he's acting like a target, it changes our offense. It just it gives defenders something to think about. All of a sudden, you have to mark someone who's very good in the air, and now all of a sudden his run now creates space for Mbappe or whoever's making that third man run into the box. Like, it just changes the complexion of the attack when you have Jude in the box. So take it for what it is. Jude Bellingham is important in midfield. He's important defensively. He's important for the creative element, the press resistancy of the team, the escape ball out of pressure. But he's also our best target in the box. So what are you going to do with that information? I think you need to somehow unchain Jude and release him with more runs into the box where he is a target. And of course, that probably means inserting an extra midfielder and masking your defense in another way. The other point I wanted to make is regarding what I just said like a few minutes ago about like, you can't really get away with, throwing all these bodies forward and asking Jude to do all this stuff if you don't have a great pressing team. And I want to share my screen here because my good friend Mark Stats, by good friend I mean I literally have never spoken to this person before in my life, but I have a lot of respect for him. He puts out great data. He has a Mark Stats bot account, which is the only good bot on that shithole called Twitter, and he puts out these great graphics. And this here is a chart about the teams in La Liga who disrupt the opponent's build-up the best. And Mark says, quote, Real Madrid is below average at disrupting opponent build-up, yet they persist with high pressing. Atleti's build-up can bypass this press, but they are not maximizing this opportunity. Atleti's forwards need to deliver the ball into dangerous areas faster. The reason I bring this up is that despite knowing how bad Real Madrid are, and here it is in the numbers at pressing and disrupting opponents' build-up, they continue to do it. And look, I actually thought some of the pressing sequences were okay today. And we gave Atletico some problems during certain phases of the game. There was one phase of the game where it was disastrous. And it was right after we conceded the penalty. And like that stretch after Atletico scored up until halftime, we kind of lost our heads. And I don't blame the team. Not lost our heads in terms of losing our cool and getting angry, but just I think there was a mental shift in that moment that Real Madrid, because of all the controversies with the referees in the build up to this, and then getting that call against them, for whatever other reason, their press just broke down several times. Their tracking became really poor, and Atletico actually almost, they had chances to double their lead before halftime. Which leads me to point number 4, I guess. It's kind of all jumbled into one point, really. But the next point I wanted to make is that I thought both Asencio and Tchouameni were very good tonight. Got to hand it to Tchouameni. I mean, Asensio's been good for quite a bit. Tchouameni, I thought, played really well. I mean, how many times did either Vasquez or Fran get beat? Like in the first half, Atleti were slicing with like 1 or 2, 3 passes. Again, this kind of coincided with that moment after they scored the penalty. Just 2, 3 passes they would cut through. They would get the ball behind Vasquez, who was pushing forward, and Tchouameni would come over and snuff it out. Or on the other side, Fran Garcia got beat several times in the second half, and Tchouameni was the one who defended the cross and intercepted the cross. So Tchouameni was very good. Asencio also, his speed in transition, his ability to clean up a high line, very impressive. And the moment of the game for me was by far Raul Asencio just throwing. I don't even remember who it was. Was it Pablo Barrios? Maybe. He just bullied him off the ball and then hit him with the Sergio Ramos get up. That was iconic. That like a hat tip to Raul Asencio for giving a hat tip to Sergio Ramos. Love it. Wing-back situation continues to be a problem. I'm terrified. Like, the thing is, we're talking about City, and they beat Leyton Orient, I think, today. Saw the score, 2-1. Whatever. It's a cup game. I think you guys have already heard what I think about City and their game, their performance against Arsenal, all that. You got the poor Man City rolling up with like a combination of Sabinho, Marmoush, and Doku versus Lucas Vasquez, pumping balls into the only player who's in form for City, which is Erling Haaland. You got to respect it. You can admit that City have not been good. You can also very factually state that Real Madrid's defense is terrifyingly bad. So we're in this situation where, regardless of City's form, this is not going to be easy. And even if you do get past City, you're going to now come up against better wingers, against better teams. So it's going to be a tough run. It's going to be a tough run, guys. Just being realistic, being completely realistic, and keeping my expectations in check. All right. 18 minutes in, we didn't mention the referees. I'm very proud. Very proud of myself. Giving myself a pat on the back. In fact, I'm going to take a sip of my cold coffee now in my Hey Jude mug. By the way, shout out to Stephen Mendes, The Real Madrid Revolution. Great book. Everyone go read it and listen to the interview I did with Stephen Mendes over on patreon.com/managing Madrid. Okay, referees. So, somewhat predictable. I mean, Real Madrid. So, let me start chronologically. I suppose after the Espanyol game, Real Madrid issued that statement. They call out the system. They want change. Stated several factual things like the Espanyol robberies that happened and the fact that Espanyol scored a goal from a person who should have been red carded. I don't love the way Real Madrid just goes and releases these videos constantly and does this whole thing. In part because I hate, any team that just starts victimizing themselves. I think what would be a more fair way of doing it is being like, okay, referees are bad in every game. Can we change the system? I think that's a correct take. What I think was what hurt Real Madrid and I didn't understand this part of it, is why they didn't attend the meeting that they wanted to attend initially, and a meeting that they could have actually spoken about change. Why did they not attend that? Like, that's not the solution, is not to back away. The solution is to be part of the change. So that part I took issue with. Either way, La Liga comes out, and there's this whole now Real Madrid versus La Liga thing. They make a bad decision. In real time, it did not look like a foul at all. Certainly not enough to like a clear and obvious error for VAR to intervene. And then VAR, he's checking in his earpiece. We're looking at the replays as he's, we see him on the earpiece, and I was thinking like, okay, cool, yeah, the replays are pretty clear, no penalty, let's move on with it. And then he gets called to the monitor, and when he gets called to the monitor, that's usually a sign that things will get overturned. I don't know the numbers behind it. Someone should just throw me the stats on that, but it just feels like anytime they're called to the monitor, the referee will change it. Anyways, more replays showed inconclusively conclusively it's not a penalty. So then this just adds fuel to the fire, and I have to see what everyone's saying after the game, but it was just a ridiculous decision. The reason I put this point for, after going through some of Real Madrid's issues, because I just wanted to focus on Real Madrid's issues and not the referee. That was a personal preference. Take it or leave it. So a couple other things, and then I'm going to take super chats. Just something that I did not like, and maybe I shouldn't be too surprised, but Atletico players did not applaud Marcelo at the beginning of the game. First of all, shout out to Marcelo, an absolute legend of not just Real Madrid, but the game of football. Love the scenes before the game. Him and Modric taking turns bowing to each other. He is missed. He is one of the players I miss the most after Cristiano Ronaldo. Even more so just like because my eyes are bleeding watching Real Madrid's wing-back situations. Like peak Marcelo right now would have been much needed, needless to say. Atletico players didn't applaud him, and I didn't think much of it. Like when I was watching, I was like, oh, that's weird. They're just kind of like not reacting to this whole thing that Marcelo is retired, a legend of the game. And then there were reports from like Jose Luis Sanchez that Atletico players did not at all, not a single one applauded him. And I was like, oh, okay, so it wasn't, just like one or two players on the camera, like literally wasn't. And then I asked Sam, because Sam attends a lot of these home games for Managing Madrid Press, and he was there tonight, and he said, yeah, they did not attend them. He said it's probably, maybe it wasn't as big of a deal as Jose Luis Sanchez reported it to be, but if it was like Celta tonight, they would have applauded him. Those were Sam's words. So I just thought it was disrespectful. Look, I know there's rivalries and stuff, but if I don't know, just throwing it out there. If this game was at the Metropolitano and Griezmann was retiring and they were, applauding him before the game, I would expect and want Real Madrid to do the same and applaud him. So, yeah. All right. Post-game quotes. The second half, Diego Simeone says Real Madrid play with more intensity. We had chances with Giuliano. 2 chances for Llorente, ended in a draw. And yeah, there's not much else that Simeone said that was interesting. Okay. I don't have Ancelotti's quotes yet. And now I do. So, oh wait, that's a long. Okay, I'll come back. I'll come back to Ancelotti's quotes. I will take some super chats. Sorry for the delay in the super chat responses, guys. Sheikh Atiri says predictable lineup, subs, and sub minutes. I'm done. Lineup was definitely predictable. I mean, I think the one change that was kind of surprising was Fran Garcia. On that note, I was maybe a little bit surprised that Ancelotti fielded Vasquez and Fran together, in part because I think, I think part of the reason Vasquez is starting at right back, I mentioned this several times before on the podcast, but he does attack. He does get into the final third. Whether you think he's Javier Zanetti in that situation or not, I'll leave it up to you. But he did have 4 key passes today. He does make overloads. He'll put those balls into the box. And then if you have Fran Garcia, who also attacks, I just thought that Ancelotti would have put Mendy there just to kind of balance it out. So I was a little bit surprised. I also think Fran Garcia is not as bad defensively as he's made out to be. I think he's fine. Although I think he should have done better in the second half. He had a couple good defensive situations, but 2 that lacked complete awareness. And he made the wrong gambles, and he stepped up at the wrong time, and Tchouameni came over and cleaned it up. So yeah, it was predictable, Shay, but I think the Fran Garcia one was a little bit of a surprise. Who were the subs? So I know Camavinga came in and Modric came in around the same time. I think there was a double sub, right? So they came in for Ceballos and Vasquez. Then Fede shifts to right back. Fede, look, we're picking. It's not like we're picking between, peak Dani Carvajal and peak Cafu here. We're picking between Fede Valverde at right back or Lucas Vasquez at right back. But I'm going to go with Fede Valverde at this point. I really am. And I don't know, I'm torn about it in the sense that you need Fede in midfield. But one thing that I liked about Fede at that right back position is that he had one drive forward, because he is one of the most unstoppable ball carriers in the world. No one can take the ball off him in those situations. He's literally a bowling ball. And he had one in the second half from that position, and no one can stop him, and he feeds Mbappe in the right half space. Those are really hard to defend. And if it means we get more of those, if he plays right back, I'm all for it. I also think it's kind of addition by subtraction by not having Vasquez there. Mr. Sushi 22 says Ceballos, 101 of 102 passes, 99% passing accuracy. Told you guys in August he was Madrid quality. Glad people have changed their minds. Fran and Ceballos. You're right, Mr. Sushi. He also had the most touches of anyone on the field today. He was very involved. His passing is reliable. He is also our best progressive passer right now in the team from midfield. He has to play. There's no question. Mr. Sushi also says Mario Suarez and Luis Garcia, ex-Atletico, say it's not a penalty. Yeah. I think Leah had half joked about it on Twitter where she said, even Steve McManaman was like blown away that was called a penalty. And that'll tell you something. Pascal Syed, just a super chat. Much love. Pascal, shout out to you. And Zafri says, if we're just playing Vasquez as an inverted right back, just play Fede there instead and get in an extra midfielder like Camavinga, Brahim, or Goulet. Yeah, I think this is the point we're making. And I didn't realize Camavinga was going to be back so soon. I guess it's already been, a couple of weeks, so I shouldn't be too surprised. But it went by quick, I think. I think the only way Ancelotti will put Fede right back is if he puts Camavinga back in the starting lineup, which is, I suppose, on the table. So we'll see what he does with that. Ancorgiotti Bordeloy says, first match at the Bernabeu off the bucket list. Sadly, no W. Awesome. Ancorgiotti, I hope you had a great time. Look, regardless of every derby at the Bernabeu was 1-1, so you can just expect that. But the atmosphere is great. I would also encourage you guys to check out a derby at the Metropolitano. And unfortunately, their atmosphere is just even way better than the Bernabeu's. And part of it is because they let a lot of racist ultras and thugs in the stadium, admittedly, but the atmosphere is unreal at the Metropolitano. It's definitely it's better than the Bernabeu. But I'm glad you had a good time. Hope you enjoy the rest of Madrid. Do we have any other super chats? Chat popping off. You guys know I don't have time to check the chat, unfortunately. But right, I did want to check Ancelotti's post-game quotes, so I'm going to see if I can bring that up. Simeone spoke first, so I didn't see Ancelotti's right away. Here we go. Ancelotti says, in the second half, we had total control. We got into the game a lot. The first half was different, much slower. We came out of the game with good feelings. The penalty situation affected the team. Before we played too slowly, in the second half, we played with more width. Yep. Vinicius and Rodrygo created a lot of danger. On the penalty incident, the VAR called the penalty. The referee was close to the situation and saw what happened clearly. I saw that the VAR called a similar penalty against Athletic against Girona. people in football don't understand this. I don't want to get into the controversy. I prefer to talk about the game. We came out of the game with a draw, encouraged. The team was good, especially in the second half. Everyone made sacrifices. They recovered in a game that was difficult. Atletico defended and counterattacked. They were very good at the back. Tchouameni had a great game, and we were close to winning. Also, he explains why Vinny and Rodrygo were more on the outside in the second half. So he says the idea was to play on the outside in the first half as well. But sometimes with the block low, Vinny sometimes goes inside to try to pass behind the defense. It was better to be patient. The goal we scored was a 1-versus-1 between Rodrygo and Mbappe, who scored it. That was also the approach for the first half. Okay. I mean, that's an adjustment they made, and I think it worked in the second half. Ceballos played very well as usual. Center backs were also very good. Hey, man, I think Ancelotti and I had the very similar analysis on this game. On Tuesday's lineup, he says, this formation may be valid. We've had 2 lines of 4, and it has worked out quite well. I don't remember having suffered any chances beyond the penalty. I mean, that part's not really true. Atletico will also have some chances that won't show up on the XG chart because they just didn't get good shots off, but they had dangerous breaks, I thought. Let me see if the XG is out. Here we go. I'll share it on the screen so you guys can see it as well. Real Madrid 2.5, Atleti 1.6. So here's Atleti is obviously inflated by the goal 0.74 from the penalty. They had this big chance from Simeone in the 59th minute. And then they had a few here in the box. Look at these ones that Real Madrid missed. Jesus. Bellingham, this was the header that hit the crossbar. That was a great pass from Vinny. Bellingham, another one, the header from the corner. That was a really good chance. This was like pretty much right at Oblak. Bellingham, another one. This is obviously the one that actually led to Rodrygo's goal. So, and then Mbappe had another big one here. That's right. This was remember I was talking earlier about Fede driving the ball forward, passing Mbappe in the right half space. Well, this one was tight. I mean, this counts as a shot, but that was a very, when you're looking at it in real time, Oblak had that closed down before Mbappe could even shoot it. So it's kind of harsh. Yeah. Okay, guys, let me see if there's any super chats at the buzzer. Sometimes there is. No, I think we got it all. Listen, I'm going to Manchester. I won't be there for media day the day before because I have to go to a wedding. Not complaining. It's one of my best friends. But yeah, I won't be at the media day the day before. At the press conference, but I'll be at the game itself. So the plan right now is that we're going to have a Managing Madrid crew on the post-game show that game. And I will be in and out of press conferences, so I won't be on the whole post-game show, but I'll be in and out, and I'll be kind of walk around. You might even be distracted if you look at my camera on the podcast because I'll be walking around the stadium and in the press conferences. So we'll have some Managing Madrid staff members there, though, right after the game. And there'll be a post-game show. So join us after the Etihad. I'll also see if I can go live on YouTube before the game from the stadium. So just give you guys some last-minute thoughts from the stadium and talk about, the lineups and whatnot, whatever. Okay. So thanks for tuning in. Oh, Vancouver. Lucas messaged me. He said that he has to go to Vancouver end of March. And we might use that as an excuse to do a podcast. So if you are interested in us doing a podcast in Vancouver and you're from Vancouver, send me a message on Instagram, just at Kiyan So. Send me a DM with your email, and I will put you on a list to be notified if you're in Vancouver. We're also doing a Classico pregame show in Toronto in May, just if you want to put that in your schedule, save the date kind of thing. All right, guys, 1-1. And this league is far from over. We got big Champions League game coming up. Managing Madrid will be there as usual on the ground. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here live on YouTube. Appreciate you guys. Kiyan Sobhani signing off. Hala Madrid.